My mother is a Holocaust survivor, but she's among the very, very unusual, because the Nazis came into her town when she was 12, and most people that age were targeted and didn't make it. She survived by many miracles that brought her through. And today the enemies target children. In Nigeria, 300 little girls sleeping in their school were kidnapped by Boko Haram in Do you know the first country that came in with assistance? Israel. Because they understood exactly what it means to have your kids targeted. 21 days ago, 3 Israeli boys coming home from school, Naftali Frankel, Gilad Shar, and Eyal Yifrad, were kidnapped. Nobody has heard from the kidnappers. Nobody has heard about the welfare of these 300 girls or 3 boys. And if you have children here, and look at their faces, see in their faces the missing children. See in their mothers' faces the anguish of those 303 mothers who don't know where their children are. And pray today with us for the stolen children and for an end to discrimination and persecution. My mother understands better than most what discrimination and persecution is. And she taught us some important lessons. Don't hate, because hate destroys the hater. Stand up for the truth, even when everyone around is telling lies. We know who walked through Israel 3,000 years ago. It was the Jews. We know that unlike what some propaganda says, who preached on the Galilee, and it wasn't a Palestinian. We know the truth, and we are compelled to speak it. To speak up against injustice, even if it doesn't threaten you now. We must all pray and speak up for the children who are kidnapped and for their families who are distraught. We face many challenges, but we can and will overcome if we stand together. So today it's my pleasure to introduce the woman, my mother, who taught me those valuable lessons, Miriam Rosenbaum.
Speech, I just want to thank you for my whole heart. I want to thank you so much for inviting me here. I want to thank you even more for supporting Israel. You can't imagine what an event like this means to me. Because when I was a child and the Nazis came to my town, most of my Christian neighbors turned their backs. They peeked out behind their curtains and saw how my family was thrown out of our apartment just because we were Jewish. They saw how my father's business was taken away just because we were Jewish. They witnessed how my family and other Jewish families were sent to concentration camp just because we were Jewish. And all the while, they said nothing. Today, Jews in Israel face enemies all around them. These are real threats to their very lives. Leaders of terror states and terror groups promise to destroy Israel, and those are not just promises. Almost every day we hear of rockets being launched into civilian areas of the Holy Land. And Iran is trying to get nuclear bombs to end it all. That is why you support for the Jewish people. You're speaking out for Israel. You're standing with us side by side. Means more than I can ever really express. So let me just say, Toda Rabba. That is, thank you very much in Hebrew. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
It is an honor and pleasure to present you with these flowers.
Thank you so much.
This lady was one of the people that helped Israel become a state. All your suffering, all you've gone through wasn't in vain. If it wasn't for you, who knows? You were there for such a time as this.
To heaven is real, the death is alive. All the little voices of angels above, sing as one. Hallelujah, holy, holy, God Almighty, great I am. So worthy,
clap our hands this evening. Oh, you can do better than that. I want you to stand to your feet. Come on, let's line up a little bit. I know we're worshiping the Lord. It's all right. We can lift our hands in the sanctuary. We can lift our voices and create a sound in this place. Come on. Come on. We're under the tent right now. But I believe the presence of the Lord is just struck in this place. Hallelujah. And if you just begin to open your mouth and lift your voice unto the Lord, you can feel the power of His presence. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. He's the great I am. Hallelujah. 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 Turn to the person next to you and say, that's an incredible God. Oh, say, that's an incredible God. Incredible God deserves incredible praise. And if you believe that worship, I hear you clapping your hands. But the Lord said, oh, clap your hands, all ye people. And he didn't stop his pen there. He said, and shout unto God with the voice of triumph. Now, if you serve a God that's triumphant, you believe that he's won every battle that's come his way. Lift your voice and honor the God that's triumphant. It's definitely an honor to be a part of this event, and you can remain standing if you will. You got me here for a few minutes just to speak and to bring this thing to a close here. But I believe that the presence of the Lord is in this place, and as you can see, people are driving by looking, and I even see some people driving by with their hands outside the window waving unto the Lord. That's all right. That's all right. Somebody said he can give God a drive-by praise. Come on. Praise God. All the distinguished guests that are here, and it's such a privilege to have you here, to have you speak to us on the importance of standing with God's chosen people. Praise God. The nation of Israel. You can be seated. And in ancient Greece, there was a time where people would erect temples to their gods. And a lot of these temples were grand edifices. They were projects to be admired. And one of these construction projects is the Temple of Apollo. And the Temple of Apollo, some of the remains still stand today. This temple was one of the greatest in ancient Greece. It's built into the side of a mountain. It stood about 10 meters high. The structure was upheld by columns. These columns were also a sight to see because there were 38 of them that held up the outer structure. And one of these columns would take, in those days, what would be about 40,000 denarii to make. And they were handcrafted, so the average craftsman would be paid about 2 dinars a day to work on these structures, meaning that if a man worked alone, it would take him 20,000 days to make one of these columns. Approximately 57 years to make one of these columns, and there were 38 of them. People would flock to this temple, having traveled miles just to come to this place and visit what was called the oracle. The oracle was a representative of their false god. And this oracle will live inside the temple all their lives and would not move from a position of meditation, be suspended over a pit of toxic fumes. And at times travelers would come from far lands away to visit the oracle. It would take them weeks to get to this place. And then they would knock on the door and then wait several days to get an answer to the temple door. Then they would give their request to the person, and the person would take it to the oracle. And then they would wait several more days to get an answer back from the oracle. They put all this effort in just to hear a word from their God. Now I want to draw your attention attention this evening today to the fact that we don't have to travel hundreds of miles to get here. Neither is it a regular necessity to wait weeks to speak to a prophet or an oracle to receive a word from the Lord. But we have the word of the Lord in the book of the Bible. We have the words of a very true and very real God every day in our lives. His word says, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed according to thy word. His word says, thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. It says, my soul fainted for thy salvation, but I hope in thy word. Forever, O Lord, thy word is settled in heaven. How sweet are thy words unto my taste, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Somebody say, the word of God, is very important. We've got to read the word. We've got to love the word. We've got to live the word. We've got to teach the word. We've got to preach the word. Somebody say, the word of God is very important. His word says, the entrance of thy words giveth light and giveth understanding to the simple. Order my steps in thy word. The grass withereth, the flower fadeth, but the word of our God shall stand forever. Everybody say, the word of God is very important. And there may be some that would say that we all came from amoebas, or we were just an accident of the celestial throw-up, and we were just the produce of a big bang. But I'll come to beg to differ with some of those people, because scientists even use the term the universe to describe all that is in existence. And we can do an etymological study of this word universe, and it is a Latin derivative, which is a two-part word that says uni, which means one, and verse, which means word or phrase. So we use the term universe to describe all existence. You didn't come from an ape. I said you didn't come